You know, there's some things that it takes a long time to come back from. Like I've watched people in my clinical practice try to walk back from significant moral errors. It is not that easy. You know, there's that Catholic doctrine that you can be saved and redeemed no matter what your sin. It's like, that's true, but that doesn't mean you don't have to face the consequences of what you've done. And like, if you want to repent and you've done something seriously wrong, so much of you has to change, that it's almost like you have to die in order to be reborn. So anyways, for those who are listening, that's another reason why you should try to step forward carefully in your life, you know, because you will be called to attend for your misbehavior, and it will occur during a period of crisis. And if you're a mess and a deceitful mess, you're going to find yourself in trouble so profound you can barely imagine it.
If you have memories that are more than 18 months old, and those memories come up of their own accord, and they bother you, they still contain emotion, especially negative emotion. There are parts of you, this is one way of thinking about it, there are parts of you that are still trapped in the past, that are crying to be released. Or there are impediments that you encountered in the past that are still blocking your way. Or there are pits that you fell into because of the error of your ways or because of bad luck that you're still afraid you might run into again. And the reason those memories come up is because the instincts that drive your negative emotions are trying to warn you of danger. And it's the case that if you allow yourself to dream of those memories again, to let them unfold inside you, you can find your way once again.
You want to initiate a process of active engagement with the dragon that burned you, fundamentally. The psychophysiological pattern of active engagement is the opposite to the psychophysiological pattern of involuntary stress. And so if you can practice embodying that voluntary confrontation, then that stance can come to dominate. And that's the stance you want to dominate, because that moves you forward voluntarily into the world. And so, and that, in all probability, that will work.
Your choice between good and evil in every moment is what determines the course of the world, and that's on you. It's like, well, that's deeply meaningful, but it's unbelievable. It's ultimate responsibility in the literal sense. And I think that in order for us to set things right, we have to understand that we have to take on that burden of ultimate responsibility as if it's, not only as if it's ours, which it is, but as if there isn't anything better that we could do. And one of the things that I found so gratifying about the lecture tour that I've been doing is that, and why I keep doing it, the live events in particular, because we've done about 100 of them now so far, is that when I explain to the audiences, and this is especially true, seems to be especially true of men, of young men, but not so young even, to say, look, you have an ethical obligation to lift the heaviest load you can possibly conceive of. And that's the primary call to adventure in life. And that call to adventure is so worthwhile. The emptiness in your life isn't because you don't have enough rights. You have all the rights there are. You have more than you should. And it isn't because you lack consumerist options. You have Amazon and pornography, man. You can get whatever you want whenever you want it. And if that's still not working, well, what are you missing? Well, maybe you're missing the opposite of that. A little bit of restraint, a little bit of sacrifice, some responsibility. There's part of me that needs to go. There's part of me that needs to die, and it has to be given up to something higher. What part of it is of me has to go? And you look to the highest to help guide you in that. So there's a discriminating spirit within you that can help separate the chaff from the wheat, and the offering up of the chaff is the sacrificial gesture. And so that can be transformed into prayer. If you give up enough psychologically, you'll cut your losses in actuality. And of course, that's sort of what thought's for, is right? So that you can get yourself straight, you can give it up in abstraction so you don't act out the pathology, and then nothing dies in actuality. But that still means you have something to give up. It's like, well, oh, that's what I did wrong. oh, it's going to hurt when that goes. It's like, yeah, but maybe you won't die. And then you offer it up as a sacrifice to something higher, because otherwise why would you improve? And that discriminating spirit inside that judges what's in you that should be sacrificed, that wouldn't even exist unless it was existing in relationship to something higher, because there'd be nothing to serve as a judge. If I'm wise and mature, then I don't make decisions now that will cost me tomorrow or next week or next month or next year or 5 years down the road. I contemplate my extended self, which is like a community across time, and I bind my decisions in the present by my covenant with my future self. That means I sacrifice the whims of the moment to the optimization of the medium and long run. There's more to us than there is to the horror. As nature is bent on our destruction, bad as culture is, tyrannical and bloody back as far as you can look, as malevolent as you are in the darkest part of your heart, and that's plenty malevolent. And so it's so interesting. It was proof for me of an old saying I read from Carl Jung. It's an alchemical motif. What you most want to be found will be found where you least want to look. There's a sacrificial element in maturation. Right? You have to sacrifice the pluripotentiality of childhood for the actuality of a frame. And the question is, well, why would you do that? Well, one reason is it happens to you whether you do it or not. You can either choose your damn limitation, or you can let it take you unaware when you're 30, or even worse, when you're 40. And then that is not a happy day. I see people like this, and I think it's more and more common in our culture, because people can put off maturity without suffering an immediate penalty. But all that happens is the penalty accrues, and then when it finally hits, it just wallops you, because when you're 25, you could be an idiot. It's no problem. Even when you're out in a job search, it's like, well, you don't have any experience and you're kind of clueless. It's, yeah, you're young. It's no problem. That's what young people are like, but they're full of potential. Okay, well, now you're the same person at 30. It's like people aren't so thrilled about you at that point. It's like, what the hell have you been doing for the last 10 years? Well, I'm just as clueless as I was when I was 22. It's, yeah, but you're not 22. You're an old infant.